editor of a newspaper.
Unless the title came after the book.
So, I mean, the topic is about success. The idea was to profile the people from, as you rightly said, a learning perspective. Which is why at the end of every chapter, we've highlighted those mantras. We've talked about these are the 5 or 6 or 3 mantras of this particular business leader. I was asked, Arun Jaitley launched the book on the 8th of April, and we had a lot of the industrialists from KB Singh to Anajit to Pawan Munjal, everyone. So one guy said, yeah, but what about failure? I said, you guys don't want to talk about it. How many corporate czars own up to their own failures unless there is probity or transparency? How many people lie about the way they've robbed shareholders of value? Many people in this room would have husbands, I mean, you don't know about it, but would have husbands who are using corporate money for normal day-to-day existence. So my belief is that unless we create, to my mind, and which I have to congratulate this government on, I'm delighted with what they're planning on black money. I said that at my book launch, I'm saying this again, I want to see people in jail. I'm against amnesty, I'm against penalties. If you evaded taxes, you go to jail. That's where you belong.
Right, and that's certainly something that we hope this government is bringing.
So a lot of the people in this book, to my mind, and you talked about Ramalinga Raju, I think it is the failure of our justice system that the man keeps going in and out of jail. Look at Ratkov. You look at Rajaratnam. You look at Rajat Gupta. I mean, the judge even went off to say, Ratkov, Bernie Madoff, 125 years in jail. Jeff Skilling of Enron, 27 years in jail. We don't jail our people, as we should. And you got Subrata Roy, but I think he must be enjoying himself more inside than outside. He doesn't have Amar Singh and Mulayam Singh to listen to. But, that's the reality of our times. So one of the reasons for the book was to make it a compelling read for people who are in business or want to get into business and want to understand the contours of what is resolute and how you should stay the course. Every one of these business leaders has stayed the course. And some of the mantras are very simple. Ratan Tata's mantra is very simple. He says, look, if I believe in something, I'll see it to the end. When Singur happened, he famously said in a press conference, countering Mamata Banerjee, he says, look, I'm very stubborn. You stand here with a gun to my head, you either shoot or you move, but I won't move. And the departure from Singur has cost Bengal the maximum. Today, Bengal is starved of investment because of that one solitary move, which, Mamata Banerjee and her cohorts don't understand. But those are the realities.
Okay, that's a fair point, that all the characters in your book have not actually given up. By the way, I do need to make the point here that since you keep referring to the husbands, the FICCI Ladies organization is full of ladies who are also entrepreneurs in their own right.
But ladies don't cheat. I've not seen ladies indulge in black money. Except during kitty parties where you'll exchange cash.
Okay. Every stereotype about women entrepreneurs is being displayed over here. But I do have to ask, how did you choose your characters given that out of the 15 or so, there's only one woman?
That's a big point. And I want to talk about that. About women and why is there only one woman in the book. I purposely didn't choose Chanda Kochar of ICICI because I think the bank was actually built by Kamath. She's merely, a custodian of the brand. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw continues to blaze an amazing trail. Yesterday, you saw that she's amongst the most 100 affected and impactful people in the world. She's a very dear friend, and I think she has seen failure like no one else has. Remember, her mother used to run a laundry service in the outskirts of Bangalore, which she still does. And Kiran, fought illness, fought a very territorial, very clustered, very cloistered a domain of pharma to make the mark that she did. There weren't any women. You tell me who. I mean, I've been asked this question everywhere. Why is there only one woman? But that's the reality. And if you look at Parliament, and I said this in a television thing, if you look at Parliament, of the 100, if you take 100 as a base of women in Parliament, 87% are BBB, Bahu, Beti or Bivi. You don't have independent women coming in. I mean, Mayawati doesn't fall into any category. I mean, she's immaculate in every which way, but otherwise...
Neither does Jayalalitha or Mamata Banerjee or any of the other chief ministers we've had who are women.
I mean, I worry.
Okay, nothing seems to please you right now.
Who are these three women?
But what exactly did you choose then? Because you've got a mix in here. You've got old money and then you've got someone who set up Snapdeal, for example. You've got a Ratan Tata, which even when he brought out his car, of course, he had the ability to back up the failures of Indica before he was able to become a success. But you've also got the Indigo story in there. So how did you choose? And how long did it all take you?
So I refused, which I mentioned in the opening essay, I didn't want to, look at a research agency which would then decide who are the best the best people for my book. As I said, it's my book. You don't agree with it, don't buy it. That's simple. I'm not, coming to you, forcing it down your throat. So the list is entirely mine of people I thought are great business leaders for two reasons. Number one has interacted with them a lot. Number two, one has seen the way they operate. I wanted decent people in the book. I didn't want crooks. And I didn't want people who have, to my mind, usurped legacies and then built on them. At the same time, to be fair, there were many businesses that are today being run by women, and I will tell you, the Reddy girls who have inherited Apollo are doing a fabulous job. But then there again, it was Dr. Reddy who's the builder. I mean, Preetha and Shobna and all have built companies. Shobna is doing a great job with Apollo Munich and with the Apollo Pharmacy world. This book is not the last thing. So there will be hopefully a sequel, not by me, but someone will, write about the next lot. To answer your specific question about Snapdeal and Micromax, Rahul Sharma, these are companies that are actually competing. Micromax today, by the way, is the biggest mobile phone manufacturer in Asia, actually Asia Pacific. So they are actually giving Samsung a run for their money in these markets. Snapdeal, you know about it. So to my mind, these were also inspirational stories. Thank God I didn't take Rahul Yadav of housing.com. So that was a sensible decision. There's a lovely
story in there where the Micromax founder talks about meeting all these Harvard people and essentially telling them, I'm okay in my price bracket. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you see, if you look at pricing, we always compare India. I don't want to make this a marketing 2.0 lecture, but pricing is what drives the Indian consumer. We have a bargain mindset, and we have a general suspicion about everyone who's selling us anything. Because of a colonial hangover and being subjugated regime after regime, we believe that someone is taking us for a ride. So we always start negotiating. So what the other guy does is he says, damn good, you want to negotiate with me, I'll mark it up by 50%. But that doesn't happen in manufacturing. So using price alone is not the answer, which is why he's got a Hugh Jackman. So you need to build, to my mind, brand imagery which supports low price so it doesn't seem low value. I was involved, I've been advising Mr. Tata, I advised Mr. Tata for 10 and a half years. The only business I was not involved in was Tata Motors. And on Tata Motors, I remember one day being pulled into a meeting where we were launching the Nano. And the marketing guy there was a chap called Rajiv Dubey, who's since joined Kumar Mangalam. And these guys kept talking about low price, low price, low price. I said, it'll never work. No one wants to drive in and look poor. And I remember sending this car.
Thing.
Yeah, I remember sending this car with my driver. Mother's here to pick up a lady friend. And she called me saying, why the hell have you sent me a Nano? What will people think? And I played that back to Mr. Tata. And this is about 15 days after the public launch. I told Mr. Tata, I said, please indulge in immediate course correction. And you've got great examples of the Beetle. When the Beetle as a car was launched, the simple tagline was think big. And these guys positioned it on price. Consumers do not want brands built only on price, because then you commoditize the brand, and especially high value brands. To my mind, the fundamental mistake that Mr. Tata and the team made was they positioned it as the cheapest car. They should have positioned it as a fad. They could have positioned it as something, small is beautiful. You could have had different colors. I even suggested a tie-up with Disney, so you actually make it the dropping the kids' car. You could have done so many things with the brand, but you didn't. And that, to my mind, has actually played on Mr. Tata's mind. Because the amount of money that the Tatas invested, and more importantly, their vendor partners invested, has yielded nothing. And Nano is actually is like flogging a dead horse. Because, to answer your earlier question, failure never gets a second chance in India.
Once it's
and
over.
Because, you had Nano as a failed car, no one is in a hurry to buy it anymore.
All right. That's an interesting point, that price is actually a part of the marketing. Amongst the anecdotes that you do mention, and you just spoke about Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw and how she was, in a sense, shaped by tragedy. She lost her her best friend to cancer. There's other tragedies that Sahil writes about in the book. How much do you think that personal factor, the tragedies, really shape a lot of the success stories you've seen?
I think a lot. A lot. I mean, I can speak of 2 or 3 people. Anand Mahendra lost his nephew on the same day that he launched the E2O, the electric car, the Riva, and he got the news that his nephew died in a motorcycle accident in Goa. And the guy's completely shaken. But there's a certain stoicness. So, to use the Shakespeare analogy, there's a certain Brutus-like stoicness that you need to exhibit. Because as a CEO, you're also leading an entire corporation. Within that, employees, within that, partners, vendors, all of that. And I have to say that Anand was always very humane and very compassionate, also because, his liberal arts background rather than just an engineering background. But obviously it played on his mind. Tragedy can also be the source of, in a very interesting way, of inspiration. The whole concept of Reliance Communications, which Mukesh started, was built around one comment that Dhirubhai passed at Jamnagar, saying, I want people to equate the price of a call to a postcard. And the second thing which he said is, he says, Beta, India mein log likh nahi payenge, par bolte sab hain. So the reason for the business is it's a talk business. Now these are interesting insights. You don't need to go to Harvard for these insights. But these are insights that you then remember as the leitmotif of everything that you do in future. And which is why I say in the book, whether it's Mukesh or Ratan or Anand Mahendra, look at what Aniljeet Singh is doing. His attention to detail is phenomenal. So he's now bought himself 480 acres of vineyards in Franschhoek in South Africa. And he's building a global wine brand, along with a hospitality brand. So the other thing that one wants to talk about in the book, and one does mention, is success never tires you. Failure does. Success actually prods you to keep moving on. It's a great oxidant.